the second. India have won the test match. India have won the series. They're going to get back for two. India at home. Lords goes wild.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of the 81 All Out podcast. This is a special one. We are thrilled to be joined by the recently former India bowling coach. But I must also mention to all our young listeners that a former India Test cricketer. Let's never forget that, and let's always give credit to those who have played tests for India or any internationals for India. This is Siddhartha Vaidyanathan, and hello and welcome, a very warm welcome to Paras Mhambrey. Thank you so much, Paras, for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you so much for having me on your show. We're trying to connect for a while now, and finally that we are chatting. It's really looking forward to this.
Fantastic. So yes, I don't need to give an introduction to followers of this podcast about Paras Mhambrey. He has been the India bowling coach for the last 2.5 years and capped off his tenure with the glorious win in the World Cup in the World T20.
Yeah.
So Paras is not just a former Test cricketer, but he's also a world champion now. So congratulations, hearty congratulations on that.
That's brilliant. It sounds good. But yeah, thank you so much for a lovely introduction, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, as I was telling Paras just before I started off, listeners, long-time listeners of the show will remember that we interviewed Bharat Arun a few years ago. Bharat Arun, of course, again, another former Test cricketer who went on to be the bowling coach of the Indian team, had a highly successful time as a bowling coach, and explained a lot about development, coaching, practice, what a coach really can do, the limits of coaching, and what we should not, really expect a coach to do when, a player has to also do a lot, the system has to do a lot, and so on and so forth. It's around 2003, 2004, I had spoken to you. This was around when you were sort of winding up your career.
Moving on. That's right.
Yeah, and I remember that is actually a very crucial, I think, inflection point when it comes to Indian fast bowling, because that was the time when they got experts to relay quite a few pitches. If you remember, they came from New Zealand, relayed quite a few pitches, and we started noticing that the percentage of wickets that fast bowlers were taking was considerably going up. Because earlier in the 90s, it was a very spin-dominated kind of numbers we were seeing. But it went up. And then you had mentioned about biomechanics even then. You had said the knowledge of biomechanics has seeped in considerably now compared to the 90s when you started out, and how that was really helping fast bowlers think about their game, and also coaches help them think about their game.
Yeah. I think it also, I'm telling you, by the time I retired, obviously one was biomechanics, understanding, obviously, what is biomechanics, you need to understand as well. It's a heavy word. Sometimes you just look at it and people can interpret and say, oh, biomechanics. I say, great. But to be able to understand and be in a simple language, what is biomechanics? How does it help? So that's important. Also, I thought by that time, there was a lot of awareness about training methods, about your quality trainers. And you had actually with the Ranji Trophy side, you had proper trainers coming in at the initial years. So I think that also helped. In terms of physio as well, we had physio. Actually, prior to when I played most of my career, there was no trainer, there was no physio. So you were your own trainer, your own physio, you're managing something or the other. But I thought that really helped in terms of it's extending a career for a fast bowler, because sometimes you do carry niggles, and it's always going to happen. You will carry some niggles or the other, but make sure that it doesn't turn out to be an injury where you miss out on a game. So having a really physio around you, just in those moments, and a trainer to really structure it, your training, I think really helped. And I think as when I started retiring, at the point when I retired, actually, in Mumbai team, you had a trainer for a couple of years, had a physio for a couple of years, but that really helped.
Yeah, fantastic. So yeah, in fact, coincidentally or not, and I don't think it is coincidental, a lot of India's recent success, the coaches around the team have been those who played in the 80s and 90s and who didn't have the advantages that the current bowlers have. Like Arun, classic example, you, Vikram Rathore, Sanjay Bangar, all of them who came up around that time, but now are, being valuable providing valuable inputs to the current generation.
Yeah. See, it's all about experience, right? you have seen one phase, you've been through a phase where you had to do everything on your own. So you had to do your research, you had to try certain things about, you had to try training methods, and understand that that's something that worked for you, something that didn't work for you, what was the right way. You heard a lot of other people, coaches telling you, now you should be doing this, you should be running that, just running, don't do gym, so it took a little while to go through the trial and error, and then really realize after a few years that this is the way it is, this is the best form of training for me, or the treatment, this is the treatment I should be looking at. I think having that kind of a knowledge, going through that generation, being without, and also kind of aligning with transfer, generally moving into a generation where you had physios, we have trainers, you have quality physios. Indian team, I remember when I first came in the Indian team, you had quality physios and trainers, genuinely who've been part of the setup in other countries, sharing their knowledge, interacting with them, understanding what is training about, what all, so what is required in terms of your training, why do you train, just everyone just trying to understand, having that knowledge, collecting the knowledge. So it was easy because you've been through that phase where you're nothing, you've been to a phase, you have quality trainers. So all that experience that you carry did help me in my coaching years as well, and it does.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the other thing that seems to have helped you considerably is that you also worked through the way through the NCA, and you saw a lot of these bowlers at a very young stage in their careers. So you have almost like seen the arc of their careers. And I think for you having that sort of knowledge base to know how they were, and I think would really help you to understand the limits of their bodies and what they can do and what you should be, where you should be guiding them, right?
Yeah, because I took this opportunity to interact with the trainers, interact with the physios, having a chat with them in terms of what kind of an injury, if certain injuries do happen, what kind of a line of a treatment would you take, why would you take that kind of a line, what are the things that you would look into, maybe, so maybe an injury, maybe a hamstring injury, what is the form of treatment you're looking at, maybe a shin stress fracture, what are the signs of a stress fracture. Because I thought I took that opportunity with the physio, I took that opportunity with the training, and to understand what is the in-season training, what should a player be doing. So because you are going to be, for me, I knew that I would be interacting with a lot of younger generation of fast bowlers, kids who just come from the system, who just come from the 17 and 19 system, not that experienced, don't have the structure back home for a different states. Earlier time, Mumbai, a couple of states had that kind of structure, right? Facilities. You have, like, I think Karnataka had, Mumbai had, maybe current couple of other states did have that facility, but most of them didn't have the facility. So I think that really, the interaction, the knowledge, sharing the knowledge with me, really allowed me to kind of communicate with the younger generation, saying, in case we have this, in case I face this problem, in case I have this situation does arise, what are in what way could I help that kid? So it did help me.
Yeah, fantastic. And it shows because you see the bowlers coming through these days. And I'm just taking Mohammad Siraj as an example because he's the one who is most prominent in my head. How test ready they're coming in, and this is phenomenal. I mean, back then we have seen players took a while to get used to test cricket. They learnt on the job. But we saw Siraj coming in Australia, and it was like he was ready. He was all ready to not only be a part of the test side, he was ready to lead the attack with others injured. That is phenomenal. It just shows the system is in place, is really doing its job.
Yeah, I agree. There are a few things. What has really helped in that is, obviously, one is the under 19 cricket. I think really, in terms, I must compliment the BCCI first to just really have a really quality under 19 cricket. In terms of, you have a lot of, you have the World Cups. All Mike playing here, I don't remember how many World Cups were conducted. Maybe two or three. I've
Yeah.
never, I now you play a lot of white ball cricket. You travel abroad at the under 19 levels. You play bilateral. You travel to England. You travel to New Zealand. You travel to different countries. So obviously, it's not an alien feeling when you travel to the other countries. The conditions are different, so you're challenged in a certain way. You go to Bangladesh or you go to England, the conditions are different. You'll be different challenges. You start looking out for answers individually yourself. You go to Australia, has a different kind of a challenge, the bounce. So obviously, you travel, you learn a lot, you're exposed to different things. same structure I think really happened was the India A structure when especially Rahul Dravid took in when he came in and took charge of the under 19 junior cricket and India A. And I think that one thing that really emphasized was having a lot of A series, and the idea was to make sure that we travel abroad, we play cricket in different conditions. So the feeling is when you for me when I know that an individual from the next level for him would be for the country, and he would be playing in Australia. He'll go to Perth, he'll go to Melbourne, or he'll go to in England. He'll play a couple of county games. He'll go. So the dressing room environment is not in England. When I entered, I should have the feeling that I've already been there. I've already experienced these conditions. So it really helped. And someone like Siraj is a perfect example of a product of. He's played a lot of A cricket. He's been a couple of years of A cricket, so I think that really developed him. The workload, everything. And you talk about it, and I think that's the reason his shift from A structure to international level. It's not a big jump, right? So it's like a smooth. It's like a transition from a small thing, one thing to the other. So it just helps you obviously carry a lot of confidence. It does gives you a lot of the feel. It's so important, the experience bit you carry it to the international level. Also the fact that IPL has made a big difference. I think you're rubbing you yeah it's won't be I would say IPL as good, near as close as it can be to international level, obviously because you are playing call it international players, you're bowling to international players. I have no fear bowling. I'm bowling to ABD as a bowler, as a kid, under 19 kid who's just part of the just comes out of the system. He's bowling to AB de Villiers. He's bowling to Shane Watson, the earlier generation. A kid is playing against Shane Warne, those kind of players. So I think that really helps the confidence I take forward from there. The exposure I have, there's no fear. Is kind of that I don't have a fear. Tomorrow I'm gonna a lot of these guys were playing Bretley, and from domestic cricket we're genuinely playing 125, 130, 130, 35. Up there you're also in a same net batting to someone like Lee, who's bowling 150 plus. So the fear factor is also not there. Also now a lot of these travels, people travel with a lot of support staff. The teams are traveling, so you have someone like a specialist sidearm guys who obviously you must heard with the Indian team, but you
Yeah,
have
the
now with
throwing. Yeah.
throwing, yeah, you now have it with the India A team, you have the under 19 team, you have the women's team. So obviously speed is not a barrier anymore. It's not something that you worried about. So I think all that has really helped Indian cricket, and that's the reason you see the way it is progressing in the direction that is progressing is because of all this.
Fantastic. So, coming to your stint, so you took over, as I said, from Bharat Arun, and there was already, there must have already been like a system in place. The bowlers would have been used to hearing some things. How do you, how do you approach that situation? Did you have like a conversation with them? Did you like to explain your philosophy and to explain your method and to make sure they understand that, what they are doing will continue, but at the same time, you will also bring in your own personality and inputs to the coaching. Yeah.
Yeah, see, when I came in, I always went in the thing that I'm entering a dressing room where already had one system in place. So for equally important for me to understand what system was in place. So in terms of every individual. So it took me a little while. I gave myself good year to kind of find that maybe that bond, the trust, creating that trust among players, a lot of communication, because every individual honestly, every individual in that dressing room is at a different phase in his career. His goals are different, his challenges are different. To be able to understand what the individual wants out of me was equally important, right? I'm going into the dressing room, so I give a lot of time having chats with everyone. So maybe Bumrah, have a chat with Bumrah. Bumrah is at a certain level in his career. Maybe someone who young, maybe Ishant was a lot more experienced. He has a different phase in his career. So to be able to understand individual requirements and what do I need to work, what do I need to do to be that benefit, be that make that difference a little bit, because at that stage at international level it's not much. If you go in with an attitude saying I'm going to change everything, it doesn't work. So it's got to be to be able to understand what individual requirements are and how I could be that help, in terms of benefit, in what way I could help them. Also realize that we were going through a transition phase. when I just came in, because Bumrah 17, right? So he had just played a few years international cricket. You had someone like Ishant who has played nearly reaching your 100 Test cricket, 100 wicket, Test matches. So he has a lot of experience. You have someone like Shami who's also been there, but Umesh was also kind of played a lot. So you had to look back and say, okay, fine, just think about it. Said you have someone like Bumrah has X number of years, knowing that he's going to play a lot of international cricket. You have someone like Ishant and someone like Umesh. You knew that he played a lot of cricket, but was not sure how many years they would move on. And someone like Shami as well, who was in between. So all of them play 30, 40 test matches together. Ishant had a lot more. So to understand that I need to come in and create a bench strength, and who do I find as a replacement for these guys? It's going to be tough. It's going to be very tough to replace Ishant with the experience that he had, his contribution to Indian cricket. It's going to be tough, to be realistic. But to be able to, in that, find who can be kind of create that bench strength, saying that, okay, fine, give them an opportunity. Who are the boys that we bank on? What skills are we looking at? Anything particular? Are we only going to be looking at X, Y, Z, or are you going to be looking at venue or team oriented players, or traveling in terms of different destinations, different countries? So that was a challenge, kind of creating that bench strength, knowing that in a few years you may not have the services of Ishant, you may not have services of Umesh. So you need to have 4 or 5 other bowlers kind of coming in through the system to be able to take over from where they left. So that was one of the other challenges that we faced when I've been through. So that was my thinking, that in that environment, also making sure that they feel wanted, they feel needed, they feel they're taken care of. But in that process also you need to create a bench strength, so that you need to keep that pipeline going. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a fine balance, right? Because someone like Ishant, he comes in with not just experience and wonderful bowling ability, but also his physical attribute. His height is a huge advantage in many conditions. Like I think South Africa is a classic example where you were trying to, where Prasidh was being seen as the replacement for Ishant because of his of his height. Same way with Umesh,
Yeah.
with the skill that he has with the red ball. I mean, it's with SG in India. I mean, it's phenomenal. You need somebody to be able
Yeah.
to replace that skill, and it's not easy. Yeah.
Never easy. And you spot on with it. It's always a challenge. So idea is to create a variety kind of an attack. That's what, because you need an attack which is all, you can tour anywhere. I think that's an attack. You need an all-round attack. You can't have a one-dimensional attack. You can't have just swing. You need to have pace. You need to bounce. So I think in that sense, obviously Bumrah is different. Shami is different. As you said, Ishant was tall, hit the deck kind of bowler. So you had someone who could be a replacement. So Prasidh was one that we looked into, who we felt that in Australia, in South Africa, looking at the bounce on the wicket, he would come handy and very different angle. You had Bhuvi coming in, and I personally feel out here is one of the most underrated. Uh, not I won't say only a bowler, but a cricketer India has produced. The impact Bhuvi has in the white with the white ball or the test red ball. If you just look at it, the way his contribution has been, I thought he's just been under the radar and people have not really acknowledged it. But just the fact that he came in, his attitude, I thought Bhuvi was something different. So we worked with Bhuvi because we wanted a little bit who was experienced, who had control, but swung the ball both ways. So you need a variety, and that was the idea, was to just look at variety. What are the options? Then Siraj came in, to complement it with Bumrah and Shami, because Shami is someone, if you look at the way ability to hit that seam, is spot on. And I personally feel that very few bowlers in the world. For last, I would really think a couple of them I would think of is Srishant was one, the ability to actually hit that seam, and was the South African Philander.
Oh,
There,
Vernon Philander. Yeah.
Vernon had the similar ability to hit that seam. So it's a unique skill, right? So you have someone like
Yeah.
Bumrah, someone like Shami, and you have in this all middle, you going through someone like Siraj comes from the India structure, fitting in, Prasidh, and other bowlers as well. So I think the challenge has been that kind of creating a pool of 6, 7 fast bowlers. Then you don't need to look at next 4, 5 years of maybe.
Yeah, wonderful. I think one of the things about coaching, and this is, I think, very important that many coaches talk about and important to highlight, is that not only should you know what to suggest, but you should also know what to keep to yourself. Because sometimes you don't want to say too much also, and you want to at least monitor it for a bit. Let the bowler try and figure it out before giving your own suggestion, right? I mean, isn't that must be a very
Yeah,
fine
yeah,
line to tread? Yeah,
yeah. It is what, how, and when.
yeah.
Three things are actually important. So what to say, obviously you should be able to understand by making, if I say certain thing, will that create have an impact or is just verbal? When, obviously extremely important, the timing is important, because you got to be able to read the situation, you got to read the mental frame that a player is in, and when. So what is the right time also. So all everything I think really matters and should be, that also will come from experience, that also comes from spending that time with an individual to understand him, and what he likes, what would he prefer, what he likes, what his dislikes are. So to that helps, spending time with the individual, understanding also helps, so in this. But yeah, all three of them.
Yeah, there was. I should ask you about this. There was a couple of tests where India went into the final innings in a very good position in the match, but then the teams like South Africa and England ended up chasing those scores and winning the test. No, at that point of time, as a bowling coach, you see that your bowlers have tried as hard as they could. They've been very close with chances. They've been unlucky on a few occasions, maybe a few edges here and there. In South Africa, we would have won that series. Again, England, get Bairstow out early, and you never know in that test what could have happened. So how do you approach that situation? Is it something that you need to give time to take control of, or do you provide, do you offer, how do you get better after those matches?
So I think one is obviously a preparation. I think a lot of work is, I think most of your work is your preparation. Once the team crosses that rope, you lose control as a coach. So it's all about then execution, all about making sure you stick to your plans, all about making sure you remind them about the plans, individual plans to a particular bowler. And if things don't work out according to your plans, and sometimes you'll be able to kind of I would say, able to say what would be the plan B for us. What is the next approach? What could be done differently? What are the things that we need to do in this session now? Is the game away from us? We need to how do we control the game? Do we keep it quiet? How do we keep it quiet? Maybe play a little boring cricket. That's fine. All the things need to be discussed. And if that happens, if planning is there, you generally more so seen that if the game does go your way, not 100%, but would expect it to go your way. But you also need to be aware that the oppositions are there to play, to compete. They are playing at the international level. They have quality players. You'll have one of them guys or two of them at the best of form and play those kind of innings. To assess, as long as we look back and I look back and say, okay, fine, we stuck to our plans, we tried our best, our execution was there. How good were we in terms of our execution? Were we there or not? As long as they've done that and not tick those boxes, you should come back and say, okay, fine, guys, let's be honest. We tried our best. We really done bad. That nothing more than this, other than this, that we could have done. But yeah, also look back and give yourself 15, 20 minutes and sit back after the game of looking back and say, what are the things that we could have done better, slightly differently, not better or differently. And if you, as long as have that conversation, people do come across and say, okay, fine, we could have done it, because guaranteed you're going to come, similar situation will arise in future. And as long as you've been through, thought about it, we can approach it differently. Tough to do that, but you have to do it.
Also, talk a bit about dealing with bowlers of such high caliber. I mean, now the Indian bowling attack is arguably the best we have seen ever in India's history. So when you deal with a bowler like Bumrah or Shami, who are operating at such a high level, what are the margins like? It must be such small factors that you can sort of help with, right, to fine tune, and that results in a big difference for them.
I think what, as I come to the point, is that conversation that you have individually to understand what are his requirements? What does he expect out of me as a coach? So once that's very clear, I know what is the line of communication I need to have with Bumrah, because this is what he wants from me in before the game, in between the game, after the game. And the similar will happen with Shami, similar will happen with Siraj, similar will happen with spinners, someone like Aksar or Ash, to know that this is what they expect in between a game prior to the series. These are the information that they're looking at. I as long as I'm some like it very clear, some like it very simple, some are kind of detailed. Maybe just to give an example, spinners in spinners you have Ash, a little more of a
Yeah.
thinker, would like a lot more information, likes to, because he's able to digest that and doesn't clutter his thinking. But if you have that someone on the other extreme, or someone like Aksar and Jadeja, you got to keep it very simple for them, because the skills are high. You know that they need very. You have to be, your messaging has to be very simple, just short, couple of words, a couple of lines, and couple of points to discuss, and move on. To be able to understand that, I think once you do that, it just helps in your communication. So I think you really need that time. That's the time that you spend with them to understand what individual requirements are, and what is that line of communication I need to, how much information do I need to provide for someone like Ash, someone like this, and just keep it simple for someone.
Yeah, one of the things that you didn't have when you were playing, and which is completely now helping the game, is data. Because back then the measurements were not there. There was stuff, but there was still not the technology to be able to give you all that you needed. So I remember in an interview recently you had mentioned how data had really helped you as a team, and you had also said that Mohammad Siraj specifically, you had picked out that example and said how data had really helped you work with him and give him the feedback and help him improve his control. Can you talk a bit about that? And we actually had Himanish Ganju in our previous podcast, and he has
Oh,
helped the
it's
team
been a
as
big
well.
help for us as well. Yeah, he's been a
Yeah,
big
so
help for us. Yeah.
he also, I mean, but from the other side, I've spoken to him, but from the other side, can you talk a bit about using that data, and then how it validated your sort of what you already knew, and then how you then direct that message to the bowlers?
Yeah, so I think in terms of, there's so much cricket that is being played world over. Uh, so there's so much cricket being played world over. There's so much matches going on. So it's so easy to collect a lot of data. You just keep recording, analyzing. So a lot of back end stuff is done by the analyst. So I think out here the analyst really, with me especially, was Hari, was our analyst, was really a great help for me sorting out, because he had a little bit of cricket background. He had played cricket, Chennai league cricket, so he understood cricket, and maybe a few months being together, he understood my requirement as a bowling coach, of what I needed in terms of to structure the meetings, individual requirements, what would I need. So I think you have so much of data available. Data is something which obviously, when it takes the guesswork out. I personally feel that when you have a conversation with an individual, earlier when you have no data, it is just guesswork, saying that okay fine, I may have bowled this, I may have bowled that line, the length was different. With now, with so much of data, you have Hawkeye, it is so
Yeah.
accurate that a whole spell comes into saying that this is why we bowled, these are the lines we bowled, and they're the runs where we given. So I think that really helps to have a conversation with individual, because when you say we go in with a certain plan, or maybe preparing for a game, individually, there's so much data available, so you can focus on the weak zones of an individual batsman, tend to pick up tendencies of what happens at a certain stage. What does he do after 30s? When does he? What are the nervous when he nervous 50s or that kind of stuff? So there's so much of data available. You can pick a lot of stuff out there in terms of your planning, and that helps in terms of the execution. So if we go in a meeting, just to give an example, you say we want to bowl a certain line and length, even at lunchtime you get enough data saying that okay fine, what are the percentage of balls that we hit. So we discuss certain things. Are we able to do that? Did we do it in this session? And I think that really helps in kind of approaching the next session, the game, especially during the game. It's not really you need to wait for the game to get over or end of the day's play. You have so much information in terms of, you felt that okay fine, in between lunch or tea, you, that half an hour, 40 minutes or 20 minutes that you have, you can just convey the point that you want to, and kind of, and it does help because you have instant feedback. You have a lot of information available, And as a bowler, all I need is, okay, fine, maybe my lengths were not up. That's one of the reasons I've not done well. Maybe just keep it simple. Can I hit that length more consistently? And I think that's where data does help. It is a tool. I always believe data is always a tool. Is how you want to use it. It depends on you. There's so much information available. It's easy to completely clutter a bowler's mind and really confuse him. Or you're able to pick and choose what you feel on what the requirement of the bowler is, and to be able to transfer that information in simple language and a couple of points. It all depends on what you are looking at.
Can you elaborate a bit on Siraj and how you used it to help him?
I think Siraj, obviously a lot was on the lines,
Okay.
So obviously just we worked a lot on in terms of, because he's had a very different kind of a angle of release compared to Shami and compared to the way he bowls. So a lot of worked on what lengths we wanted, because I think his strength has always been ability to kind of in get the ball in earlier bit. So lengths were pretty much important, and for his recent times he started working a little bit on the one which he went away. So how do we kind of, we sat back and say, okay, fine, this is the line, this is the length you've been bowling. We need to improve the percentage of the length, to be able to hit that. Because if you have control on the length, that allows you to play three format very easily. You don't want to be a one format bowler. T20, the margin of length, margin of error is really not there. You err a little bit, your good balls are taken over. You err a little bit in lines or length, then you're gone. So I think the idea was to have a chat and say, how do we become a three format bowler? Red ball, because of seeing you've been a lot of red ball, you have control in terms of more or less of the length. But how accurately can we add that line to it now? Because with white ball, everything narrows to kind of a channel is the stump, your three stumps, and a little bit of one or two of outside the offense. So your margin of error is pretty less. The lines especially then matter. So be able to say that what are the lines we bowled, consistently focusing on it, consistently discussing it with him, and making sure once he was aware of that, I'm getting better as the game progress, and it's only 1% improvement that we want. You cannot have a big step jump forward and unrealistic to expect that. So just work every time. We got maybe this session we bowled 40 balls or maybe 36 balls. We've been in that zone for 20 balls. Could we bring it to 24? Could we bring it to
Okay.
25? And the idea was to have kind of pushing it, saying that, and also a positive reinforcement saying that after every session, if you were able to achieve it, just kind of highlight that thing to him, saying that, okay, fine, great. Percentage has gone up from 50% to 55%. Perfect. Can we go it to 60%? Can we go it to 65? Anything above 65 and above, I feel 65, 70 is gold standard. So if you can in that zone, ability to hit that ball 6 to 7 times out of 10 balls, 7 times out of 10 balls, you're giving your best chance to perform, create pressure and pick wickets. So just I think a lot of that kind of information you picked up and shared with someone like Siraj.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, I find Siraj a very fascinating bowler because he is so relentless and attacking. It is almost like session one, ball one to the last ball he bowls in the day. He's bowling with the same level of attacking mindset and the sort of relentlessness. It's such an amazing quality to have as a bowler. To be able to do. You very rarely see. I mean, sometimes bowlers go into the defensive mode, which they have to, but Siraj doesn't. I don't think he just wants to attack, and that's
Yeah.
brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the only way I think. As you said, you got to be able to attack consistently. It gives you the best opportunity to pick up wickets. And I think the other bit I also want to add someone like, you see the ability. If you see recent times, if you see Siraj using a lot of crease, you see him using the crease a lot more. So he's changing the angles. He's got smarter. He's got intelligent. He has more control. Develop more control. His reading of the game is better. The understanding of the situation better. You see that now, and it's just I think maybe helping him. The data has helped him, saying that if he can use the angle, how will he benefit from creating a different angle to a right-hander? Because left-hander, if you see, if the left-hander just purely for the angle that he bowls it's a very very difficult customer. But how do we create that angle a little differently to someone like a right-hander? And if you see now recently he started using that, the credit goes to him. He's worked on it.
Fantastic. Also, Paras, as somebody, I've been following Indian cricket from the late 80s, early 90s. And if I had seen an attack of Umesh, Ishant, Siraj and Shami, that itself would have been like unbelievable for me, like how India has become. And then you
Seriously.
have Bumrah. Now, I cannot often even believe that I am watching a bowler of this caliber and this quality, an Indian bowler of this quality, because, but my expectations were not that high. And I cannot even
Agree.
believe that we are fortunate enough to have this bowler like this. And it is not just, I cannot just talk about the bowling itself, because even cerebrally, like mentally, the way he's thinking about bowling, it is very apparent that he's at a different level. He's like once in 100 years kind of bowler, isn't he?
He is two things for me that I've all said when it comes to Bumrah. He's a freak, that's one, and he's a once in a generation bowler.
Yeah.
Purely, it's not about the numbers. You don't look into a number of matches he's played or how much he's played. Purely, if you judge him for the impact that he has in all the games that he plays, every format, maybe T20 is up there, top of the list. One day cricket, top of the list. Test match cricket, the impact that he has in the number of few test matches he played, but the impact that he has in terms of winning percentage, really winning those games, it tilts in a favor. He's free. Obviously, he has he's blessed with an action which is so different than the others, completely different from what we would face from the others. It's very difficult to pick him up. You know, he's intelligent. He thinks about his bowling. If you see the way he's progressed, he's got better over the years. He added different things in his bowling, and if you just weigh the way he goes about, and I always tell him, I said, many times have a chat with him. I said, when you sit out and you're watching a game, and you sit out and say, okay, fine, I think as a bowler he should be doing this. I think this is the time he should be doing that, and more often than not, he does it. In that moment, that ball, somehow I felt I said, that's what I talked to him. I said, boom, I somehow, many times I sat outside and said, okay, boom, should bowl this one. And you've done it. You bowled that one. How do you do it? So obviously he's thinking about the game, right? He's thinking about his bowling. He's reading the opposition. He's reading the tempo of the game. So important. And he does that. Obviously, action is different, completely free, completely different angle that he bowls, doesn't come with a run up at all, and in that small kind of a run up generates so much of pace. You really, as a batsman, you don't have any cues, you don't have time, and just so he's relentless, and he's just kind of a bowler who's very intelligent, thinking about the game. So that's why he is where he is right now.
I mean, and he's able to not only, like we spoke about Siraj being relentlessly attacking, but Bumrah is able to not only attack, he's also not conceding runs. He's also able to restrict runs. I find that remarkable. How are you getting into such a fine margin of bowling where you are able to both attack and restrict? That is almost like, must be so precise in your thinking and your execution.
Control. That's all about control. If I'm able to hit that length consistently, I'm hitting those lines. As a batsman, I know my margin of error is very less. In case I need to take him on, is I'm going to take him on at his best. So what are my odds of being successful? So many times I'm just thinking as a batsman. I'm not sure they think that way. But as a batsman, many times they think that, can I be safe against him? Should I maybe in a T20 game, if he goes for 24, should I be happy with it? And we don't give him a wicket, or he picks up a wicket, that's fine. But 624 sorry, 424, or four, anything less than around that, I should be happy. And then kind of focus on the others, and take a weaker link, choose a weaker link. That can happen because he's pretty relentless, right? If I want to take him on, I'm going to take him on at the best, and the possibility of my success is pretty less. We just look at the way the World Cup has gone: 4 overs 9, 4 overs 10. There was only one game in the finals that I think it was he went 24. One of the games in 24 was the final. The one game before, maybe Australia. And I had a chat with him. I said, "Boom, this is not what you expect from him. We are so used to you bowling 4 9s and 4 16s. 424 is expensive. So please make sure that you control the runs next time." And that's what just purely is the expectation, because the way he goes about it makes it low simple. It makes it so easy. 4 9 and you pick a wicket. On a wicket, a Pakistan game, that's the way he bowled. In fact, the wicket, just the way he bowled. I think he spoils you. That's what it is.
He spoils you for sure. In terms of biomechanics, just to continue with Bumrah, I mean, he's a very different. He's not, his run up and his delivery. They are sometimes they are disconnected. Even you feel that he can even jog in and he can bowl the same way and he can get the same result. So
Walk in,
he's not
forget jogging.
walk in.
Jogging is too fast. You ask him to run too fast. He can walk in and bowl fast.
Correct. Like he's like for me in my head, he's the Shane Warne of fast bowling, and even maybe that, and even doing a more difficult task because he's bowling fast.
Yeah.
So how does one, so as a biomechanics sort of a person, you just say this is like a freak, and we need to know how to manage this freak because it's going to be difficult for you to suggest any major change in his action, but at the same time, you don't want him to get injured again because
Yeah.
you want him to be able to be doing that repeatable thing that he's comfortable with. Yeah, so it must be again a fine line.
Very fine line. Two things out here. In someone in his case is obviously your alignments. Once you know that that's his alignment, as long as he sticks to the same alignment and no change out there, you're not worried. And the second one is workload. I think two things in someone in his case, because it takes so much with his action. It takes so much out of his action, and to be he's gonna do that. And someone like for him, very few people have come across like him who still loves playing Test cricket. If you give an opportunity, he loves Test cricket, and he's someone who's so very passionate about. So you see him bowling a lot of longer spells. You see him bowling a lot. To be able to make sure that maximize his test career as well for our benefit, Indian cricket's benefit. Make sure that you got to take care of him. How do we take care of him in terms of managing workload? You got to rest him. It takes a lot, and that's a challenge. If you look the way we went about this England series, last series that we played, we had a 5 test series. We knew he would play a very important role, but we also knew that we needed to give him a break. And the challenge was which game to give him a break. Was it the third game? Was it the fourth game? That's a challenge, right? Because your test series is balance, hanging in balance. You're important to take a lead, and once you're in front, you want to make sure that the opponents don't come in and equal the series. So challenge is always going to be there. So two things, simple, as long as your alignments are okay. If not, and your workload. If you take care of these two things, especially someone like him, then you know that he's because of his work ethics, he's going to work on his fitness, he's going to give enough time, he's going to rest. So his work ethics are fab. So you're not worried about that.
Yeah. One of the things about this bowling attack, Bumrah, Shami, Umesh, Shishant, all of them, and they don't get, too much, I feel it's not acknowledged as much, is how beautifully they bowl in India, in tests in India. They almost always, bowlers coming to India are not able to match them in their skill. Of course, the spinners coming to India are not able to match because Ashwin, Jadeja, and Aksar Kuldeep, they are at a different level. But I'm saying,
outshine them.
Right. Even the fast bowlers, like great fast bowlers who come to India, are not able to even get close to the way the Indian fast bowlers are using it. So there must be something like the way the lengths they are hitting, the control they're having, the way they're able to use the ball. They must be, operating at a different level.
Yeah, it's all about experience, I feel, because you played in these conditions so often and so much. You kind of understand. See, India is very different compared to the other countries. If you go to England, your conditions won't change from Lords to Edgbaston to maybe
Nottingham.
any other Nottingham or anywhere that you played. The conditions don't change. The soil doesn't change. India is unique. You go south, you go red soil.
Yeah.
You go central, you go up north, you get black soil. East is different, west is different. So obviously you played a lot on these conditions. So you have a great idea of what lengths to be done. Bounce is a variable factor. Somewhere it bounces, somewhere it doesn't bounce. So you played so much out there, you have so much experience. You kind of know that what is the length on a particular black soil, what are the length I need to work on red soil. And I think once that you have with the experience, you understand that this is the right line, this is the right length on this surface, because you've been through that. You played so many games out there. From the experience that you gather, you know that this is the length will be successful. Now there's a trade-off between, yes, you can go fuller, but you also can concede runs, but that's a trade-off between that. You'll have to take when to go fuller so much and when to hold back also. So experience is one bit, and they played a lot of cricket there. But if you compare it for others, because we go to England, your length is consistent same. You in England, anywhere that you bowl, you'll have to bowl a particular length. You can't go fuller, you can't go short. Australia is similar because of the bounce. You're so used to hitting that length, which sometimes becomes short on Indian conditions. But to able to adjust and going little fuller, you struggle. So the challenge others face is because of this, and I think just purely for the experience that we have and skill. You can't take that skill from it, and I'm not just the experience bit, but just purely the skill that you have, the variety of skill that you have. Your Bumrah is different, Shami is different, Siraj is different, Umesh was different, someone else, Ishant was tall, round arm, Umesh was round arm, used the reverse swing very well. Bumrah is different. So I think the skill, as far as skill factor is concerned, we have a variety out there as well.
Yeah, in terms of Bumrah, is we spoke about the sort of the run up and the action being somewhat disconnected. It could be disconnected, though it isn't. But
Yeah,
tell us
no,
a
it
bit
isn't.
about
Yeah.
someone like Shami, the perfect rhythm bowler. I mean, as a viewer, in fact, when Shami is running in and at his best, at his perfect rhythm, even before he bowls the ball that he's going to demolish this opposition. I mean, you can feel the rhythm in Shami's bowling. I mean, that must be so beautiful for you to watch, right? To see the rhythm with which he runs in, the seam, perfect, honest seam coming through, pitching
Presentation.
at the length. It must be a dream for you.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I think it's just such a pleasure to watch someone like him, and just to see what he does so easily, effortlessly. As I said, the seam presentation is fab. It's that's what the secret is, to be able to hit that, present that seam all the time. Because the moment your seam is so upright, you really don't know which is going to come in, and the question is always asked for as a batsman. You don't know if it's going to come in or go out. And obviously then you have the pace. He's not a kind of a bowler who bowls mid 30s. He's a high 30s, high 40s bowler, right? He's 140. To be able to do that, so he catches on, surprise you with the pace, because if you don't run looking at him running in. He's not that kind of bowler who runs in really. He's kind of a, yes, he has a rhythm, carries a nice rhythm to the crease, but just surprises you with the pace that he does, and obviously the seam just challenges you. You don't know which one is coming in, which one is going out, and you ask. It's as a bowler, you always asking questions to the batsman, and if you're able to do what you're doing and you're able to consistently hit that length, I think as I said, that's the reason he's so successful worldwide, not only in India.
Explain a bit about just a small bit about that seam, because it is it is so difficult. You have said so few bowlers have been able to do it. What is the challenge of getting that upright seam, ball after ball? Why is it so difficult as a bowler?
I think just to be able to release, the wrist position matters, and I think not everyone is able to do that. You see a lot of bowlers have an upright seam, but maybe a little angular. See Anderson doing it. Anderson has the ability to hit the seam upright, but always angular, and that's what
Mm,
helps in kind of the swing. So it's kind of, but very few are bowlers who ability. It's just you have it or you don't. You keep practicing, and I'm just saying is Anderson must have practiced for 40. He's 40. He's played nearly
yeah.
180, 180 test matches, and he still wouldn't. He must have tried it, but he still couldn't get it right. So it's, you're born
Yeah.
with it. You kind of have the ability. Either you have it or you don't have it. So
Mm,
someone you're born with, he is blessed with it. He has ability. It's something, the way he leaves the ball leaves his wrist. It's just straight upright every time. It's like straight, and I think that's something, you either have it or you don't, and you can practice and get as better as you can. But if that would have been that, every other bowler who's played international for 10, 12 years should have been able to do that, right? But it's not possible. So you have that skill, you're born with it, like Bumrah. It's just the
mm.
action that he has it. You can't find another Bumrah and say, okay, fine, I want to have a Bumrah in this mold. I would have 5 Bumrahs, because so many today's generation, he's a role model for a lot of guys, right? People do, you see a lot of people trying to be Bumrah, but can you? But you have it or you don't have it. So he is kind of that ability to, the way it leaves his wrist upright, wrist right behind the ball, and to be able to hit that seam that straight. Oh, it's a treat to watch. Sometimes you just sit out and just sometimes you just enjoy this. That's kind of a feeling you get sitting outside, and you have someone like Bumrah from bowling from one end, so Shami from bowling from the other. It's just a quality of fast bowling at show. You can see that, it's a treat to watch.
Yeah, and we haven't even come to the great spinners that we have, with Ashwin and Jadeja. I mean, that is the next step to handle for the batters. So that is even more difficult.
100%. Ash, one of the greatest match winners this country has produced. Jaddu, one of the greatest all rounders this country has produced. Simple. It's just the impact, just the contribution to Indian cricket is amazing. You have one end, someone has Ash, one of the greatest matchwinners the country has seen. The way he's progressed, the way he's evolved as a fast bowler. Oh, sorry, evolved as a spinner. Different, obviously, Test cricket was his forte, but if you just look at him, the way he's evolved in T20s now, he's made himself as an off spinner. He's made himself relevant, and which is so difficult because earlier there was a stage where only left-arm spinners and leg spinners were successful. But if you look at him the way he is, and just the way he's evolved, he's the kind of guy who's made himself relevant with in white ball cricket. In the T20 he bowls in the power play. That's what he is. So speaks about that. Someone like Jadu, coming in and relentlessly keeping it so simple and to be able to hit those lines and line continuously, and also who can bat at number 7 and be a match winner, both of them. So yeah, fabulous to have obviously these two.
I mean, it's the one of the hardest things to do, right? You think it is so simple, but it must be so hard to do what Jadeja does. Like repeatable action, just small variations, getting the length, getting the control. It's like he's a machine, and he must have practiced. He must be practicing so much to get that level of perfection.
100%. He's done that in the younger years. He's gone through the grind. He's played a lot of cricket, so the foundation is there. And obviously, with his expertise, with the experience, he evolved as a bowler. Understood that obviously you have to evolve, right? As a spinner, as a bowler, you need to evolve. He's done that. You see in the way he's compared his action maybe 7-8 years ago when he came in was slightly different, a different approach. Obviously, worked certain things and has made it a little simpler because that allows him to be repetitive, as you said, and effective.
Yeah, when Arun was here, actually, that was the time when Kuldeep was out of the team. But Bharat Arun was very clear. He said Kuldeep is now reaching the prime of his career, and watch out for him. And it has come, it has proven right. And he is now, I think, in the phase of his career where he's at his approaching his peak, or pretty close to that. And talk a bit about the speeds. I mean, it's fascinating to see how Kuldeep has become that much quicker when he's bowling in tests, and devastating because of that. He's able to get that spin at that speed. I mean, the England series that we saw, oh my God, that was fabulous.
Yeah. Uh, just take you back a little bit of what if you go back and I wanted to look at Kuldeep's action maybe 2 years before, 2.5 years, 2 years before, because I remember having this conversation with him in Sri Lanka when there was two teams. So one team was playing in England. There was a
Oh
main team, and the
yes.
other team traveled to Sri Lanka. Other teams traveled. So Rahul and myself had gone to Sri Lanka with the other team, and Kuldeep was out there. And I remember having that conversation with Kuldeep very clearly, just working a little bit on the alignments and the action a little bit. If you just compare his action few years back prior to that 2020, and if you compare it right now, the difference that you'll see is the angle of run up has changed, the angle of approach has changed. Much more angular earlier, has a lot more straighter now. And I think obviously it takes a little while. We have to have that conversation. You have to provide him why, with the reasoning as well, an explanation of why you advising certain things, why you ask him to change the angle. Idea earlier was he did bowl, but he couldn't get as much from his run up of the action earlier, and you see that earlier little slower speeds, but we worked a little bit definitely in the action, and what has really helped him in the action is to be able to generate a lot more from his action current action. Also, what has helped in obviously the speeds have gone up. Is much quicker, so it's not very easy. It doesn't give you enough time to step out or kind of really drive him or take him on that easily. Also, the fact that also helped him in terms of with that action by doing that change is the lines that he's bowling. So his earlier lefties were little troubled, were not that comfortable bowling to left-handers, but people would be able to play him in a certain way. But now, if you just look at the way he is, because of the lines are so accurate, so he's challenging the lefties, he's challenging the right-handers as well. So a couple of change there, and Kuldeep, and you just see he's just gone from strength to strength now, and he's there. He's one of the best bowlers in the world right now, and all three together, it's a formidable attack.
Yeah, and obviously, someone like Hardik, he
Completely.
did get injured during the World Cup, and Shami, of course, replaced him and did fabulously. But having a Hardik there, and now there is this young cricketer Nitish Reddy who's coming through, who seems to be in that mold. Having a seamer who can bat seems to be like something that teams are really looking for. Right?
Yeah, because it adds a lot of balance, isn't it? When you have a seamer who can bowl, then you know I can play an extra spinner if required. So
Yeah.
that gives me I can have an option of bowling six bowlers when I go in a game, and that's a luxury you want to go in a game, right? Having six bowlers, because you never know how the game goes. One bowler can have an off day. There can be a niggle, there can be injury, and you go in with only five bowlers sometimes, and one of the drops of your full focus is on this four bowlers, and the workload is there. So when you have that luxury of having that seamer coming in, it just adds a little balance, because then you can either play an extra batsman, you can play an extra bowler, so helps you with a uh, different kind of a set balance in the team. And Yeah, someone like Nitish, I personally feel a young guy coming in. I've shown the little glimpse of someone who can bowl seam up. So yeah, but to reach a stage, I think he needs to focus a lot on his bowling right now. He's little batsman heavy right now, and bowling. Yes, he can. You see a potential out here, but it is for us to go ahead and develop that potential. And that's why Hardik is so important, such an important member in the team, because he can purely bat, he can play as a batsman and he can play as a bowler as well in both the departments. So, but if he's there all the time and he playing maybe white, especially now that he prefers only white ball format, he adds so much of balance to the team that you actually can only go with, then you can only have two more seamers because Hardik is there, and that allows you to play three spinners or two spinners minimum. So yeah,
Yeah,
does add
we
a
have
lot of
seen.
options.
Yeah, yeah. We have seen, in fast bowling, we have seen, another transition that you have done. I mean, of course, Ishant and Umesh went away, were gradually transitioned, and then now we have seen Mukesh, we have seen Arshdeep, we have seen
Avesh,
Akashdeep, Avesh,
yeah.
Akashdeep. We have seen that. What are your thoughts on spin on, with Ashwin and Jadeja sort of slowly in the back end of their careers? What are your thoughts on the next generation of spin? Of course, Aksar and Kuldeep are there, and they will are
Yeah.
expected to play. But what are your thoughts on the young spinners coming through? And do you think the conditions in India are really little more now tilted in the pace favor than spin favor, which is a little ironic given what we know from the past?
Uh, See, if you be honest, and if I'll have to be honest, I doubt you're gonna get a vis-a-vis replacement for both of them. Let's be honest. I think just the skill out there is so high. It's gonna be difficult. I wouldn't say you're not gonna get it, but it'll take a little while. And this is the time I feel right now, because knowing how Jaddu is, obviously he's moved out of the T20 format. He's only now focusing on two. He's such a vital member for a test team because of his batting and bowling ability. Ash is out there, out and out match. So how many years are you looking at? Maybe you need to have that discussion with Ash. You need to have that discussion with Jaddu, saying that what are their plans, and how many years they see themselves playing. Maybe 1 year, 2 years. So now once you know that you have 2 or 3 years on hand, you need to start focusing on who's going to be your replacement. Who's going to the guy? It will take a while. You got to be patient with the guy who comes in, because someone who's played 10, 12 years of first, international cricket, to match that expertise or match that experience will take a little while. But if you think you invested, you found the two or three good quality spinners, maybe this is the time kind of to groom them. Any home series coming in, uh, you know so yeah, you'll have to do that. You'll have to take that. You'll have to go that way and saying that how when do we get an opportunity, because unless and until they don't play, they're not going to be experienced, they're not going to get better. So you need to find a balance between. That's the biggest challenge in Indian cricket, right? You need to win as well, you need to develop as well,
Yeah.
because every series you can't. You need to win every game. People want to win every series. That's a pressure. You can't run away from that fact. But in all that chaos, you also need to have a plan where you're going to develop cricket as well. So how do you find the balance? So that was a challenge in our time, to find the balance between winning series and development. So that challenge is going to be there. But this is the time, because the more time those youngsters spend with Ash and spend with Jaddu will be so useful. Just the way having that conversation, having that chat, spending time in the dressing room, watching them go about their preparation. And I think that's the only way they're going to get better.
Yeah, absolutely. And who knows, maybe, in the future they could be end up being coaches as well and grooming the next generation.
Yeah. Ash, that's what I told Ash as well. I said, he has the potential, he has the thinking. He'll be a good coach. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to wrap up, Paras, two questions. The highest, the happiest moment in your tenure, and the lowest moment in your tenure, and lowest not because of not necessarily because of any defeat or something, but something that you feel was a missed opportunity, something that you feel could have done better. So, would be great if you can share.
Oh, highest obviously finishing the World Cup, being
Yeah.
champions. I thought that was something that evaded us for such a long time. Since obviously 2007 was the last ICC T20 World Cup. 2011 was last was
Yeah.
ICC wins. So we played what we done. We played so well. We played in terms of bilateral series. We done well in that sense. But that one trophy that was really evaded us, just to be able to win that World Cup. It's kind of a having that monkey off your back at times with so much pressure. You're playing good cricket. You have the team. You have the talent. You have the skills to win those tournaments. But not being able to cross was kind of very disappointing, and to be able to do that finally in during my term or with others, Rahul and Vicky, was a best feeling. So that can't explain that feel,
Especially after the
because it's
final, that
combination.
after how close the final was.
Yeah. You in the final, that initial bit, that game was yours, and the way Klaasen went about and it came to 30 balls 30, knowing that out here it could was evenly balanced, could go anywhere. That 1 6 balls does make a difference, and especially the way Klaasen played. His wicket was important to be able to get that wicket early. So everything was pieces in a puzzle was falling in the right time, right places. So that was good. Uh, Disappointed, I wouldn't see. I don't think disappointment is what I don't think as maybe any series out there. But yeah, maybe if I look back and say the South Africa series that we played last time also, especially the first time we went there, we won the first Test match, and not to be able to win any series out there was something I would be happier had we won that series, because it never happened till then. Just to be able to win the first series in South Africa, I think that's something we still feel. We had an opportunity, but couldn't get through. But obviously now, obviously this generation, next team, I hope that those are able to do that. But yeah, that would be one thing I would feel we could have hoped. Would have been nice to win a series in South Africa.
I
Yeah.
expected you to say the 2023 World Cup, but I think, honestly, from my perspective, to have watched the Indian team to that World Cup, there is very little you can really be disappointed about, especially the way the bowlers
Yeah.
bowled. It was
Yeah.
just fabulous. It was almost that they were at their peaks.
Yeah. Well, it's just a game. If you look at the finals, it was a matter of getting an edge. Sometimes you need your luck. Sometimes you need luck your go way, and I think that finally your luck wasn't your way. It's just the way we guys bowl against Head. It could have been easy. Head would have nicked it. Very first second over would have been someone like, uh, you know, 20, 30 for 20 for 20 for 3, 20 for 4. Would have been easily 25 for 4. Game would have taken a different turn. But you have someone like Maxwell coming in the fourth, fifth over, makes a difference. So yeah, you need luck. But as you said, I think that's not something that you can control. But if you really had opportunity, I felt Test cricket is something very close to me, and I really enjoy. So that series, had we done that, had we had that Test series under our belt, that would have been nice.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Paras, for your time and for your insights. And this has been wonderful to talk about your tenure, and also hearty congratulations on all that you've done. Not just the World Cup win, which is of course a good cherry to have on top, but I think even the
Yeah.
whole basis that you have set and the foundation that you have laid, I think is going to come of really great use for Indian cricket going forward. And we hope that you continue your long association with and produce even better cricketers going forward. So thank you, and wonderful to have you.
Thank you. So lovely chatting with you. I don't know how long we've been chatting, but just was interesting. It just went on. Just nice to have a chat. But thanks. Thank you so much for having me here.
So thank you, and 81allout.com is our website, and please send us feedback, subscribe to our podcast, send us reviews, and rate our podcast. We love it. And I will put all the other details of the links and everything else on the notes. And keep listening. Good night and take care.